Vault-Tec promised safety from nuclear war, but they completely lied. Every single vault was designed to torture, murder, or experiment on the people inside. From frozen families being forced to watch their loved ones die, to children becoming genetic harvesting farms, cloning disasters that created an entire population of a psychopath named Gary. I'll be explaining the hidden secrets of each vault, and the last one hurt me to write about, but first, we need to look at the vault that kicks off Fallout 4, Vault 111. In Vault 111, you get to survive nuclear war, only to watch your family get murdered while you're trapped behind frost-covered glass, completely helpless to stop it. Vault-Tec sold this as premium cryogenic preservation. Pay now and sleep through the apocalypse, waking up to a better world. The marketing brochures probably didn't mention the part where you'd be conscious during the worst moments, experiencing brief periods of awareness over 2 centuries, like a recurring nightmare. No thanks, Vault-Tec. I'd rather become the king of the wasteland. The Institute saw your vault as their personal adoption center. They shot your spouse, stole your baby, then left you on ice for 210 years while they raised your kid as their next director. Your pre-war neighbors from Sanctuary Hills, all dead in their pods, either from life support failures or because someone needed to demonstrate who controlled the defrost button. That's dark, man. But this is the really dark part. The vault staff weren't even in on the full plan. When they realized Vault-Tec had left them out of the freezing program, they revolted. Their skeletons are still scattered around the facility, proving that even Vault-Tec's employees couldn't escape becoming test subjects. Yikes, talk about a tough job. This vault doesn't just kick off Fallout 4's revenge story, it establishes the franchise's core truth. There's no safe place when corporations treat human survival as a business opportunity, but at least the sole survivor eventually woke up. Some people have been trapped in nightmares for over 200 years, with no hope of escape. Vault 112. Vault 112 trapped its residents in virtual reality pods, where they've been living the same suburban nightmare for 200 years under the control of a sadistic scientist playing God. Dr. Stanislaus Brown, Vault's overseer and inventor of the GECK, has been torturing the same group of people in a VR simulation called Tranquility Lane, where he can kill them, resurrect them, and kill them again for his entertainment. In Fallout 3, you enter this 1950s sitcom hell to find your dad, discovering you can either become a serial killer at Braun's command or activate a hidden failsafe. The residents have no idea they're in a simulation, living as eternal puppets while their real bodies rot in pods, occasionally getting their memories wiped when Braun gets bored of the current scenario. You can find Betty, a little girl who's actually Braun's avatar. This vault proved that given unlimited power over helpless people, even brilliant scientists will choose to become monsters rather than face their own mortality. Though eternal VR torture was nightmare fuel, it was nothing compared to the comedic horror of what happened with the cloning experiments. Vault 108. Gary. That's literally all you'll hear in Vault 108 because this place became a cloning facility where every single resident is now a violent copy of Gary. The original experiment involved cloning research with a terminally ill overseer who had cancer. Something went catastrophically wrong, and now the vault is overrun with dozens of increasingly hostile Gary clones who only say their own name like demented Pokemon. The non-Gary residents either escaped, died, or got converted into more Garys through whatever nightmare science was happening in the cloning labs that clearly nobody understood. Audio logs reveal the horror of watching your vault slowly fill with identical psychopaths, while the original residents barricaded themselves in rooms trying to survive the Gary apocalypse. Clones get more unstable with each generation, meaning Gary 54 is way more violent than Gary 12. But these psychological experiments were just practice runs. Vault-Tec was building towards something much worse. Vault 11. Vault 11 told its residents they had to sacrifice one person every year, or everyone would die. The Dwellers created an entire democratic system around choosing who dies, starting with volunteers, and moving to lottery, then to electing overseers who got executed after their term, turning politics into a literal death sentence. You can find campaign posters in Fallout New Vegas showing how political parties formed around who deserved to die, including the brutal Justice Bloc, who basically turned the Vault into a murder democracy where negative campaigns meant actual death. Catherine Stone became overseer by threatening to reveal everyone's dirty secrets if they didn't elect her, then used her final act to destroy the sacrifice system, resulting in a civil war that killed everyone except those final 5. The last audio log is just crushing silence after the survivors realize they murdered their entire community for a lie. This experiment revealed that people will normalize literally anything, including scheduled murder, if an authority figure tells them it's necessary. If you thought voting people to death was insane, the white noise experiment turned talented musicians into something far worse. worse. Vault 92. Vault 92 gathered the world's best musicians and then drove them insane with subliminal messages hidden in white noise, turning virtuosos into violent psychopaths. The experiment used sound booths to pump hypnotic commands into residents' brains during hearing tests, slowly programming them to become super soldiers through audio mind control that they thought was just standard vault maintenance. The Overseer's terminal in Fallout 3 reveals he was kept in the dark about the true experiment. Professor Malleus pushed the experiments harder despite warning signs, increasing the white noise exposure until residents' eyes went bloodshot. This vault proved that trying to weaponize art just creates artistic weapons that nobody can control. Though turning musicians into killers was horrific, at least they stayed human, unlike what happened with the botanical experiments. Vault 22. Vault 22 turned into a plant zombie horror show when experiments with genetically modified crops created spores that transformed residents into mindless carriers, spreading deadly infections. The scientists were developing super plants to solve world hunger, but instead created vegetation that literally ate people from the inside out, turning the vault into an overgrown tomb where the garden fights back. When you explore it in New Vegas, you find mantises the size of dogs and spore carriers who used to be researchers, now shambling through greenhouse halls, spreading clouds of infectious death that'll poison you if you breathe without protection. The survivors who escaped became the tribal group at Red Rock Canyon, but they brought the spores with them. Dr. Peters, one of the scientists, deliberately sabotaged the vault's systems to prevent anyone from leaving with the spores, but his sacrifice came too late to stop some from escaping into the Mojave. But this biological nightmare was nowhere near as devastating as what Vault-Tec did with the FEV virus in the Capital Wasteland. Vault 87. Vault 87 wasn't testing isolation or social dynamics. It was straight up turning people into super mutants using the forced evolutionary virus, creating the green-skinned monsters that terrorized the Capital Wasteland. The residents got hit with FEV immediately after the vault sealed, transforming normal families into hulking abominations while their children watched. The entrance is so radioactive it'll kill you in seconds, forcing you to enter through little lamplight, cave full of kids whose ancestors probably escaped this nightmare before getting dipped in the vats. One super mutant named Fox retained his intelligence and helps you retrieve the Gek, but he's literally one in thousands who didn't become a mindless killing machine obsessed with finding more humans to transform. The vault kept detailed records of each transformation, but turning people into monsters was just the beginning. Vault-Tec realized they could make people destroy themselves without any virus at all. Vault 114. Vault 114 recruited rich elites with promises of luxury, then stuffed them into unfinished quarters with broken amenities and an incompetent overseer chosen specifically to piss them off. The experiment wanted to see how wealthy people would handle losing everything. Fallout 4, you find it occupied by Skinny Malone's Triggerman gang. The interview tapes for overseer positions are comedy gold, featuring candidates who can barely form sentences being selected over qualified applicants because they'd cause maximum frustration to the highly educated residents. Psychological profiles show they specifically chose elites with the lowest tolerance for discomfort, including one woman who'd never walked upstairs before and a man who had servants to put on his socks. Subscribe right now if you want to see more dark secrets hiding in the wasteland, because the next Vault's experiment with addiction recovery will break your heart. Vault 95. Vault 95 gathered drug addicts, helped them get clean over 5 years of successful rehabilitation, then opened a hidden stash of chems to watch them destroy everything they'd built. The residents formed genuine bonds, created support groups, and celebrated sobriety milestones together, completely unaware that Vault-Tec had planted enough drugs to kill a Brahmin hidden in the walls, making what happened next even more cruel. When the 5-year mark hit, one planted agent found a massive chem stash, and within days the vault went from recovery paradise to blood-soaked drug den. One woman's journal describes watching her husband, clean for 5 years, beat their neighbor to death with a pipe for a single hit of jet, then overdose in front of their door while begging her forgiveness. You meet Kate near this vault, and her companion quest involves getting her clean at Vault 95's medical facility using the same equipment that once helped and then destroyed hundreds of recovering addicts. Destroying adults was one thing, but Vault-Tec's most evil experiments targeted the one group that couldn't fight back: children. Vault 75. Vault 75 told parents they were saving their children through education, actually executed every adult immediately after the door sealed, then raised the kids as test subjects for genetic harvesting. The experiment killed children at 18 after evaluating their genetics, either harvesting their DNA if they were superior or turning them into staff. The graduation ceremony was literally a firing squad, with the Vault's mainframe in Fallout 4 showing records of hundreds of children terminated after their final exams. The psychological evaluations show kids were encouraged to form friendships and relationships specifically, so researchers researchers could study how they handled losing them to graduation, with notes about optimal grief responses. But even child harvesting wasn't as mathematically evil as what they did with the breeding program in Los Angeles. Vault 63. Vault 63 started as a normal vault until post-war modifications turned it into a weather machine that could reverse ghoulification but created violent electromagnetic storms across Appalachia. The Stoltz family discovered the vault generations after the bombs and modified its systems to try saving their ghoulified daughter, accidentally creating lost creatures that are basically super aggressive ghouls with lightning powers. The original experiment involved atmospheric manipulation to create perfect growing conditions, but the nuclear war's radiation interacted with the weather systems to create something nobody predicted. In Fallout 76's Skyline Valley update, you learn the weather experiments caused massive storms that destroyed settlements and created an entire region of electrical anomalies where your power armor might randomly shut down. The Vault's overseer went mad trying to perfect the weather control system, leaving behind journals about how she started seeing the storms as divine punishment for humanity's sins. Hugo Stoltz, desperate to cure his daughter Cassidy, ignored every warning sign and turned the entire vault into a massive Tesla coil that shoots lightning at anything that moves. The modification process required human neural tissue to interface with the weather control matrix, meaning Hugo literally put pieces of his own brain into the machine to save his daughter. This vault proved that even good intentions and family love can create disasters when you're messing with forces beyond human understanding. All of these experiments failed because people died too quickly, so Vault-Tec tried something different, vaults that actually work. And that's when things got really twisted. Vault 21. Vault 21 solved every dispute through gambling, creating a functioning society where blackjack determined who got extra water rations and poker decided vault leadership. The experiment worked perfectly with residents living in relative peace, settling everything from marriage proposals to maintenance schedules through games of chance, until Mr. House showed up and won the entire vault in a rigged game. The society developed its own culture around luck, with children learning card games before they could read, and elderly residents treated as wise elders if they'd survived decades of high-stakes gambling for basic necessities. Half the residents wanted to stay isolated, while the other half wanted to open up to the wasteland. He then filled most of the vault with concrete, kicked out the residents, and turned the entrance into a hotel on the Vegas Strip, keeping just enough rooms intact for tourists to gawk at how people used to live. Sarah Weintraub still runs the gift shop in New Vegas. The vault's success rate was so high that House had to actively sabotage it because a functioning anarchist gambling society didn't fit his vision of New Vegas. This vault actually succeeded in creating a peaceful society, which is exactly why House had to destroy it, because functional communities are bad for business. But at least the gamblers had a chance at winning, unlike the doomed pacifists who never stood a chance. Vault 94. Vault 94 recruited religious pacifists and programmed their vault to automatically open after 1 year so they'd have to share their resources with whoever showed up. The residents were so committed to non-violence that when raiders arrived demanding supplies, they welcomed them with open arms and got slaughtered for their kindness. The vault's residents had spent their year creating a garden paradise with abundant food and pure water, even developing new cultivation techniques that could have saved the wasteland if they'd survived to share them. The experiment tested whether pure pacifism could survive in the wasteland if you thought testing pacifism against raiders was cruel. The diverse ideology experiment created 4 different flavors of wasteland violence. Vault 15. Vault 15 crammed together people from wildly different political, religious, and cultural backgrounds, then opened the door after just 50 years to see what kind of society they'd create. Instead of melting pot harmony, the vault exploded into 4 distinct groups: the Khans who became raiders, the Vipers who started a snake cult, the Jackals who went full cannibal, and the only reasonable people who founded Shady Sands. The experiment was testing if extreme diversity under pressure would create unity or chaos. And Vault-Tec got their answer when residents started forming gangs before the door even opened. The new California Republic, the most successful post-war nation, came from this vault's refugees, which is ironic since the experiment was designed to fail. The vault's education system broke down within a decade as different groups refused to let their children learn together, creating separate schools that taught completely different versions of history. This vault proved that forcing incompatible groups together doesn't create understanding, it creates 4 different flavors of wasteland violence. What happens when you give those same violent impulses unlimited firepower? Vault 34. Vault 34 gave its residents unlimited access to weapons, but didn't provide enough space or food, creating an overpopulated powder keg where everyone had guns, but nobody had room to breathe, creating a culture where violence was the first solution to any problem. When riots broke out over overpopulation, The survivors split into two groups, with one becoming the boomers who worship explosions at Nellis Air Force Base, while the others turned into ghouls trapped in the flooded vault. The reactor leak that ghoulified the remaining residents happened because someone used explosives to breach the armory door, causing a chain reaction that irradiated the entire lower level. The boomers who escaped developed an entire religion around explosives, believing that the bigger the boom, the closer to God, which explains why they shoot artillery at anyone approaching their base. This experiment asked what happens when you give everyone guns but nothing else, and the answer is they'll use those guns to take what they need. But this was nowhere near as sophisticated as the VIP Robo-Brain murder mystery that played out for centuries. Vault 118. Vault 118 split ultra-wealthy residents who became Robo-Brains from working-class people in terrible conditions, but the poor section was never finished, so only the rich folks' brains in jars survived to have the world's worst dinner party for 200 years. The experiment wanted to study class warfare, but ended up with a bunch of entitled brains in robot bodies murdering each other over petty pre-war drama while complaining about the service, turning the vault into a robot Agatha Christie novel where every butler did it. The robo-brains still dress for dinner despite having no need to eat, hold board meetings despite having no corporation. The working class section is just empty concrete rooms and construction equipment, showing they never intended for poor people to survive at all. This vault proved that rich people's personalities are so toxic that even removing their bodies doesn't make them bearable. If you thought robot class warfare was absurd, the control vault that started everything proved even perfect. Isolation was just another experiment. Vault 13. Vault 13 was supposed to be a control vault studying long-term isolation for 200 years, but a broken water chip turned it into a desperate survival story that launched the entire Fallout franchise. The Vault Dweller got sent into the wasteland to find a replacement chip, discovering the super mutant threat and defeating the Master, only to be exiled for being too contaminated by the outside world to return. The Overseer's decision to exile the person who saved them all revealed that even successful vaults prioritized their experiment parameters over basic human gratitude or logic. The vault's records show they knew the water chip was failing for months, but kept it secret to prevent panic, inadvertently creating the conditions for their savior's emergence. This vault proved that Vault-Tec's control groups were just experiments waiting for something to go wrong. Even the control vaults were experiments, but at least those people had hope of survival. Some vaults were designed to kill everyone from day one. Vault 12. Vault 12's door was designed never to seal properly, exposing everyone inside to massive radiation that turned them into ghouls, while they thought they were safe from the bombs. The residents spent months wondering why people were getting sick, their hair falling out, their skin peeling off, before realizing the very shelter meant to save them was killing them slowly. Within a year, everyone was either dead or transformed into radiation-scarred ghouls, creating the settlement of Necropolis, where the ghouls tried to build a new society while dealing with discrimination from smooth-skinned humans. The Overseer knew about the door, but was ordered to tell nobody, dying of radiation poisoning while maintaining the lie that help was coming. This experiment was supposedly studying radiation's effects on humans, but really it was just creating a new subspecies of humanity through deliberate torture. If you thought radiation torture was bad, try spending 200 years completely alone with nothing but fabric dolls for company Vault 77. Vault 77 contained one man and a crate full of puppets, designed to study the effects of complete isolation with only inanimate objects for company, creating the legend of the puppet man who went completely insane. After years alone, the man started treating the puppets as real people, holding puppet trials, puppet executions, and even a puppet revolution, where he destroyed half of them in a rage before crying over their cloth corpses. He escaped after murdering the king puppet in what he described as a coup, entering the wasteland wearing a crown made from puppet heads and claiming to be the rightful ruler of the Puppet Kingdom. The jumpsuit from Vault 77 is found in Fallout 3's Paradise Falls, suggesting the Puppet Man became a slaver, though some say he still wanders the wastes performing shows for anyone who'll watch. This experiment proved that humans need actual human contact, not just faces to talk to, or they'll create their own reality where fabric and wood become more real than flesh and blood. But two vaults were so disturbing, even Fallout won't show you what happened inside Vault 68 and 69. Vault 68 contained 999 men and one woman, while Vault 69 had 999 women and one man, creating social dynamics so messed up that Bethesda refuses to show what actually happened inside. The experiments were supposedly studying how extreme gender imbalances affect society. Every vault I've shown you was designed to fail through horror, war, torture, or death. But the most terrifying vault of all was designed to succeed perfect because it proves Vault-Tec's ultimate plan worked. Vault 76. Vault 76 was a control vault with no experiment except gathering America's best and brightest, giving them 25 years to prepare, then releasing them to rebuild civilization on reclamation. The residents were carefully selected for their skills and psychological profile, creating a community of overachievers who spent decades training for the moment they'd emerge to reclaim Appalachia, essentially creating the most prepared post-apocalypse survivors possible. When the door opened in 2102, these vault dwellers spread across West Virginia to become the players in Fallout 76, each pursuing their own vision of rebuilding from launching nukes to opening shops. Within weeks of leaving, these perfect candidates for rebuilding were launching nukes at each other for better loot, proving that human nature beats training every time. Unlike every other vault where residents died horribly, Vault 76's people successfully established settlements. This vault proved that even when Vault-Tec played it straight, the world after the bombs didn't care about their pre-war plan. From the white noise soldiers of Vault 92 to the cloning disasters of Vault 108, from the voting murders of Vault 11 to the executive breeding programs of the Tri-Vault conspiracy, each one revealing that Vault-Tec saw the apocalypse not as humanity's end, but as their chance to play God with the survivors. If you enjoyed this video and want to see every Fallout power armor retcon explained, click the video on the screen.